Martial World Teyvat Chapter 41, Fantasy Fiction by Azazyel. The location I chose was based on a large plateau atop a sloped mountain leading to the ocean to the east. Granted, the placement would make pumping the water from the ocean into the factory more of an issue, but I was fine with that to have the protection of a fuck-off tall cliffside to keep random monsters from gleefully coming onto my factory. At this point, I had greatly upgraded my sonic-emitter fabricator, so now with spirit stones acting as basically high-end nuclear fuel, I was able to condense my fabricator array into a large rifle design, basically to break down and reassemble masses of materials in pre-programmed designs. Sure, I hadn't managed to get it down to the small flashlight size the workers in Satisfactory had it down. But they had mastered making pocket dimensions, controlling gravity, and stuff I couldn't exactly replicate on a workable scale yet. Either way, with my upgraded build gun, I swiftly took out the masses of materials I had stuffed into the 3 dozen spatial rings I was wearing around my neck, and then began making the foundation and core structure of the new factory. First, I created a large ramp leading down the cliff to the ocean out of rebar-reinforced concrete that was further protected by thick 2 feet 2 foot thick solid steel walls surrounding the walkway to protect it from the sea's erosion and any random monster. And then by the time I had completed the walkway, Shinha had used her spear and adepti arts to dig a large perfectly square hole into the mountain with large circular holes stabbed into the walls and floors of the hole that I then began filling in with rebar-reinforced concrete. 500 yards long and wide gives me at least 300,000 square feet to work with. And seeing as I am going for a set of 4 in pyramid designs for the mega factory, that will lead to a great amount of room for me to build the farms and the cultivation tanks to fry the herbs in spiritual energy and then work to harvest them. I thought as I went over the plans for the mega factory. Of the 4 factories, the first 2 were strictly going to be farms, with each level going up in the pyramid having more valuable and energy-requiring herbs and treasures. While another factory will be devoted to desalinating massive amounts of ocean water, and then heavily enriching it with spiritual energy and vitality via the sea monsters my machines will inevitably collect and shred. While the last factory would be the most important technically, as it would take the collected herbs and treasures. And then with all materials carefully regulated to a precise age and spiritual density, they would then perfectly bake the materials into a series of high-grade pills of various tiers for martial artist and cultivator consumption. I literally had everything planned out, with several of my mining machines laid out to also begin collecting the aluminum, cobalt, and other metals that electronics used, along with making sure I was mining up enough spirit stones that I could run the mega factory at only a slight loss. Seeing the literal stack of papers I had made of the diagrams of the building before us, Danyu gave me a long look and asked bluntly, "Do you even have enough lifespan to build all this without any workers?" To which I gave the 3 ladies a dry look as I said with some annoyance, "Yes, I can with the technology one have. It would be faster with workers obviously, but kaching, are we going to trust other workers again?" The Yuhung of the Millilith gave a weak smile before she shook her head. "No, Lady Ningguang and Lady Cloud Retainer believe that should you somehow mass-produce elixirs and pills as you said you will, the fewer people to know of its internal structure the better. As such, it fell to me and these 3 ladies to use my build guns to begin building the factory complex. Thankfully, I already scanned all the designs into the build guns databases, so it was less of us having to manually weld every together and just point the building gun precisely where it needed to be pointed. And literal tons of materials would break down into particles that would be reformed and fitted to attach to other pieces of the factory. So there wasn't really any talking as we worked to make the foundations of the factory's superstructure between the 4 pyramids that were going to be built. But once we finished getting the shell of the factories down and pyramids up with raised walls up to block the curious eyes of people or monsters that may walk around the factory, I personally began laying out the groundwork of the factories themselves. Premium enriched soil I had enriched myself from the surrounding area for quality control filled the dozens of planters that were placed within a rotating system, so all the plants got equal amounts of spiritual energy, and with the planter boxes being almost stacked atop each other with 1.5 meters for the plants to grow, I had plenty of room to grow literally thousands of each sample of the herbs and treasures I had collected. Some of the herbs are kind of an asshole and need certain growth conditions, but that can be controlled fairly easily. Lightning herbs aren't such a bitch to find when you can just set up a small Tesla tower near them to shock the plants at controlled intervals. I thought with a hum as I made sure to get a line of lightning-themed body refinement pills for kitching. And of course, there were other herbs or treasures that were a bitch and a half to grow. Like a herb that would only grow in swampy water that was boiling due to an earth fire below it, which was basically a powerful fire treasure that formed and enhanced a geothermal vent. But such a thing was easily replicated through large amounts of spirit energy pumped through pipes made out of sun copper. I spent the entire day just planning out and building the framework for the farms to regulate and fully automate the seeding, the planting, the cutting for new seed/growths for new herbs, and then collecting the herbs to be transferred over to the alchemy factory. Alright, I think this is enough for today, I said with a slight groan as I felt something in my back pop from all the bending over I had been doing to carefully read all my blueprints. How much progress do you think you made? Shinha asked curiously as she stood beside me and looked at the blueprints for a long moment. Her eyes twitched and then she looked back at me for an answer as she couldn't read my blueprints at all. But to her question, I put a finger to my lips and thought about the workload in the future. Oh, we had great time honestly. So we are probably 30% the way done, and the water treatment and enrichment plant will be easy and won't take much time. While the alchemy factory is going to be the real annoyance to build. As Ganyu and Kaching looked over at me curiously as I spoke, I finished off with a proud smile. So if we keep to this schedule and there's no hold-ups, I will have this factory done within a week, and pills coming out in another week.